Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Lynn Lowdown. I'm Cal Anderson, a LCTV volunteer host. And my guest today is Jared Nicholson. He's a school committee member, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Now, what are your roots? Background, family, etc.? People want to know what makes you tick when you go home from school committee work.
And thank you. Yeah. So I'm originally from outside of Boston. I grew up around here. I moved to Lynn after law school, and I actually had old family ties to Lynn. My great-great-grandfather was a leader here in the city, and my great-grandfather went to classical. And I came to Lynn after law school, started a legal aid practice here, working with low-income entrepreneurs and small businesses, and have gotten involved in the city and gotten on the school committee. And my day job, I'm an attorney. I work with startups in Boston.
Ah, okay. Now talk to me about your family. I understand you got married recently.
I did get married last June. So my lovely wife and I live in East Lynn, and she's a midwife. She works at Mass General Hospital and delivers babies. Yeah, she's terrific.
I have a sister-in-law who's a doula.
What
is your wife's name, by the way?
Her name is Catherine.
All right. So, you know, a couple of years ago you were the Wunderkind, the newly elected Frosch, but now, because of spring retirements, you actually gained some seniority, because there was 2 new committee persons just elected last year. So how is your working relationship with your colleagues, and what about the new talent?
I think it's great. I think we have a great team. I mean, we were definitely sad to lose Patty Capano and Maria Carrasco, who stepped down after the last term. They were both terrific. And I'm excited to be working with Michael Satterwhite and Brian Castellanos. I think we have a really good team in place. And the other thing is we have a new mayor who is the chair of the school committee. And so there's a lot of new faces around the table at the school committee meetings.
All right. Now, of course, one of the things that happened recently was the defeat by the voters of the 2 new schools. And it doesn't mean that endeavor is dead, because there's got to be schools in the pipeline because of the increased population in our city. What do you see next for that? It's back to the drawing board, but how are they going to do things differently this time?
So we're restarting the process. The school department, we authorized, the school committee and the city council authorized the school department to submit another statement of interest to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, which is the state agency that oversees the construction of new schools. And I think we do have to learn from what happened last time. I think we could probably do a better job at publicizing the work that's happening in the committees that are working on these issues, and so we can draw people in earlier into the process and get their feedback earlier in the process. Because I think, like you said, this is a really important need that the city has for the city's future, to be able to provide satisfactory education to the kids. And if we're going to do it again, we need to be able to understand what went wrong last time and how to do things differently. And I think that's definitely top of mind as we start the process.
Just briefly, is the model still proposing 2 schools, but maybe different locations, or speak to that?
It's really open. I think when we started last time, the idea was we needed to replace Pickering. And before that, we had replaced Marshall. And really, that it was the process goes back a few years in identifying the need at the middle school level with both Pickering and Marshall. And the city was able to do Marshall first. And the idea was always that we would go back then to Pickering. And when the Pickering process began, it became apparent that we needed more space, because the increase in student population is more towards Westland, where the school is going to be built by the current Lynn Tech, and Pickering is in dire need of repairs and better space, but that's not where the growth in student population is happening. And so it's kind of 2 different issues a little bit, that Pickering is in bad shape and we need more classroom space because of growth in other parts of the city.
All right, speaking of classroom space, it's been a couple of seasons now, but the new Marshall, Thurgood Marshall Middle School, is an exemplary model statewide, I understand. Now, the old one has its moments. It's got some architectural wonder to its facade, and I understand that there was a recent attempt to sell it for a different use. Now, what happened there, and why did it fall through?
So this has been, this goes back to the original process to replace the Marshall. The city determined that it wasn't going to be adequate to use for school, and made the decision to replace it. And in part of that process, when the state funds the construction of a new school, they include money for whatever's going to happen to the old building. And so the state included money to tear down the old Marshall. At one point last year, when it came time to make that decision about what to do with Marshall, there was some thinking that there might be a way to salvage some of that space and actually help the city financially by working with the private sector to come up with a use of the property that would benefit the city. That required a lot of discussions between the school department and the city, because obviously, we were just talking about, the school department is really in dire need of space. And so when the school department has property, we want to be really careful about where that property goes and if there's a potential use for it for the to educate kids. And where that landed last year was there seemed to be some private developers who really thought this was worth more to the city as in private use than it would be as a school department. And so that was put out to bid. The bids didn't come back at a level that people expected, and so it's kind of back to the drawing board.
So that's another project that's going to be revisited again.
Exactly.
No, we just have the recent retirement coming up, or the soon retirement of Superintendent Catherine Latham. Mm-hmm. Now, Dr. Latham's been at the helm for a while. A few years ago, there was a renewing of her contract, and there wasn't at that time a global search put out, and the excuse was, well, because of the residency requirements limiting, et cetera. Now, there seems to be a concerted effort to go beyond that, because there's starting to be some creativity in giving leverage to those residency requirements. Now, do you think it's time for a complete cover-to-cover review of the city charter? It hasn't been revised in decades.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this certainly came up in context of our search for a new superintendent, and I think we have a good solution and are going through a really strong global search. It's going to be helpful for the city to have that conversation about what we're looking for in a superintendent, and also lead to a great result. I think it would absolutely make sense to take a look at the charter. I mean, I would want to get more feedback from my colleagues on the city side as to what sort of roadblocks they're running into on the council as part of the charter. But those documents really should be living documents where they reflect the reality of what's happening in the city today.
A couple of the things just came up during the recent, I have to say, budget crisis, which was pretty much involved some of the charter wordage about how do you set out more than a $4 million bond. So some of that wordage is in there. There's some sexist references in there. Some things just need updating, and there's some more talk about that. I just wanted to hear how you weighed in on that. Where are we on blizzard packs? Now, we just had in this last part of the winter, we had 4 major blizzards in 3.5 weeks. And I understand it's very expensive for the school system to make up those, let alone having everybody go to school well into June. So what's going on? It's a policy that's okay to do in the Commonwealth, and some cities are doing it. Are we any closer in Lynn?
Yeah, it's something that I think we're taking a look at. I know it's something that Michael Satterwhite is also taking a look at.
Now, what is a blizzard pack?
So the blizzard pack...
Tell the viewers at home.
Yeah, the blizzard pack is this idea that you can prepare students to do classwork when there's a snow day by having materials that they can keep at home that they could work on in the event that school is canceled.
This made sense to me because it's not unlike telecommuting from home. Non-essential employees can stay home, but it doesn't mean they're goofing off, they're doing stuff. So here's a thing that I understand would be mandated. They could actually have a week to turn in these blizzard pack assignments, but that way everybody gets credit for the magic 180 days. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Quickly, just wrapping up, tell us about the school committee meetings and all about transparency. How do people go to them, and how do they see them after they've been how do they access school committee meetings?
Absolutely. So we meet every second and last Thursday, and the meetings are open to the public, and it's highly encouraged that people attend. There is a 15-minute period before every meeting for public comment, so anyone can come sign up and speak at 6:45 on the Thursday of a school committee meeting. And they're also filmed and aired on Lynn Community Television, so you can check them out live and also online. They're on the school committee website, and I'm sure Lynn Community Television's website as well.
Almost a good old-fashioned New England town hall model, where
Exactly.
the citizens get their input. Thanks, Jared Nicholson, and come back again and tell us a little bit more about some of the things that are going on in the school systems in Lynn.
Would love to. Thank you.